Hello and welcome to another Warcraft 3 audio commentary. This is a 2 versus 2 game on Turtle Rock, and I'm going to be the red undead player here, and we're going to be, it's going to be me and Jake. Jake is John Cena 12 here. He's going to be playing Orc. He's going to be going for a Tauren Chieftain, and we are going to do the STUNLOCK strategy. I sort of messed my build order up a bit. I made the Tome of Relics a little bit too early, delaying my first goal, but at any rate, the opponents, I don't know if these guys knew each other or not. Probably didn't know each other, but they do play reasonably well together here in this game. So Jake actually scouted with a peon. He loses the peon, and we see that the opponent, one of the opponents is Orc. We actually didn't see the other one. Jake says he thought it was Elf. I was not sure, but apparently it was Elf, and he's going to be a Keeper of the Grove. I guess the guy went for Entangle. No, he went for Treants. That's seems a bit odd since he's missing some of his mana already. So that's a touch confusing, but at any rate, let's see, what have they scouted? They scouted Treants? Doesn't look like they've scouted us, but yeah, so we're gonna be going for STUNLOCK, and actually start with Beetles first though, so I can creep. And the Orc player actually item crept my Ogre, and he item crept his green camp, so he's doing fairly well in terms of collecting items. He gets a Circlet of Nobility from my orange camp, and a Gauntlets of Ogre Strength, so from his green. So he's got +5 strength, which is actually going to give him an extra 125 hit points, which is pretty solid, along with 2 extra attack damage from the Circlet, and 30 extra mana from the Circlet as well. So pretty solid here. He's playing a little bit try hard, getting in shots against these Beetles. I'm not really trying all that hard, honestly, but when I notice he's doing that, I'm gonna try a little bit harder. Not really too crazy here. Actually, my APM is ridiculously low here. But at any rate, Jake is going for a Tauren Chieftain. He is pretty much got free reign to creep. Teal is creeping very, I guess he's not really creeping all that slowly, but since he's going for archers and treants, it does seem like he's creeping very slowly. And purple is, I don't really know what he's doing with the grunts here. He should have either been helping teal or maybe creeping an orange when he had me controlled, but anyway, I creep my orange camp, and he's going to lure the shop creeps. This is a very aggressive and very bold move that he's doing. I don't think it's really that great of an idea, but he is going to get one of these ogre kills without too much risk, honestly. Though he does get caught with Ensnare, and he probably is not expecting us to have Stun, which I don't have yet, but Jake does have Stomp. So he's going to go ahead and Stomp, and we're going to get a grunt kill here. The fact that Jake is here with me allows Teal, it means Teal is pretty much free to creep the shop on the other side, so he does that. Again, purple's going to be sort of being very annoying with a hit and run. He's going to lose a wolf here. It gives me level 2. So we're pretty much on the same page in terms of experience, me and purple. Now he does have more items so far, but... And Teal actually has level 3, but Jake is going to end up getting level 3 also from this camp. So in terms of experience, we're in good shape. I don't know what was going on with my fiends. I thought they were like right here with me, but I really mess up, and I'm going to lose 2 fiends, probably 3, or sorry, 1 fiend, probably 2 here very quick to entangle. But Stomp and Impale are going to be very, very strong against all these slow archers. So we're going to pretty much... get some kills here on these units. 3 archers down. I'm going to lose another fiend to entangle. There's nothing really I can do against entangled grunts and something like 6 archers, aside from just micro better and be, you know, my positioning was messed up at the beginning of that fight. So that was pretty bad news at the beginning of the fight. But as it went, it didn't go too bad. We're going to kill a grunt here. We killed a grunt before that fight began. And then we're going to kill another grunt. And these stomps stomps and impales are really going to be doing a pretty good job here against this guy. Purple has added a Shadow Hunter for Hex. Teal has added an Alchemist, which has become sort of the in vogue popular metagame hero for Elf, Keeper, and then Alchemist. Again, he's I always thought he was sort of underrated, and definitely not really underrated now since he's like the meta hero for Elf, second hero, but he got buffed quite a bit, and Keeper of the Grove actually also got buffed quite a bit as well in these sort of recent patches. Tranquility, his ultimate, got a serious buff. The healing rate doubled, and he gets a 3-second invulnerability window when he starts casting it. Now they did half the duration, but again, if you double the rate and half the duration, you know, it's on paper it's basically the same. Though in practice, you never, you know, against competent players, you really weren't ever getting the full duration anyway. So it's not really a big loss, honestly. It's more like an on-paper loss, but it, sort of in reality, it's not. It's just a massive buff, actually. Especially with that 3-second invulnerability window, you basically guarantee 120 hit points of healing that cannot be stopped on your whole army. Plus blocking any like attacks that are coming into the keeper if he's, you know, when you cast that. So Jake's going to be forced to town portal. We see that Teal is really going hard on the archers, which is in some ways pretty good news. We don't really have a lot of stuff that's really super vulnerable to archers and piercing damage, and we also have a lot of AoE stun, which should be very strong against archers. Clumped together, slow, low hit points. They do have a Loon's Grace, which will be reducing. I think it will be reducing the magic damage from the spells, so that's, you know, something helpful for them. But the hit points are very low. They take extra damage from grunts. They take extra damage from Tauren, which is actually what Jake ends up going for here, which is probably not what I would suggest with this strategy. Generally, when I do the orc part of this strategy, I just go for grunts and then maybe spirit walkers and definitely witch doctors for the stasis traps, just for the theme. You might say, well, you've already got enough stun, what's another, you know, ability, a stun ability, stasis traps. But stasis traps and heal wards are really amazingly effective, especially if they don't really have much dispel, which I guess you might say purple has adept spirit walker. So but, you know, if he's using disenchant on every shot of, you know, stasis trap or heal wards, I think you can disenchant your own spirit link as well. So if the stasis trap is in the middle of their army and he wants to disenchant it and he disenchants spirit link, again, I'm not 100% that's actually what would happen. I think it would, but again, not 100%. It wouldn't be all that terrible. He'd be disenchanting his buffs as well. So we're both going to end up town portaling here after creeping the bottom right. We, I think, either scouted or knew they were going for top right. We got the bottom left, that is. So we're trying to keep up with the creeping. I think we're doing a decent job here. We've crept most of our orange camps, green camps, the bottom left red. They've crept the other side, top right red, and then this shop. Neither of us have actually crept the orange camp between the bases. They've done both of their, yeah, they're slightly ahead because they've done both of their green camps. I think they did both of those, or not green camps, they did both of their sort of middle turtle camps, and we've only done one of ours. So I think so. That's you know, that's, I think they were the ones to creep theirs. But anyways, we're gonna go ahead and attack them in force here. Teal's probably gonna town portal, I assume. He's still just got archers. He does have 2 attack upgrades on the archers, and I think he's got the range upgrade. I'm not 100% if it's 800 range or yeah, I'm not really sure on that one, but anyways, he just got a bunch of archers, so that's not really too problematic for us. on open ground, that's going to be really bad. In the middle of his base, it would be, it'd actually be very good for him. But we're not really going to fight them in their bases most of the time, I don't think, in this game, because it's just very dangerous to do it against all those archers. And again, he's going to try to do this focus fire with the archers in a tangle. I get a late anti-magic shield after he had already got a full entangle off on me. Again, it's only level 2. They did buff level 2 and 3 entangle on heroes, but we do have strength heroes and healing and spirit link, so we're going to be in okay shape as far as that goes. They're really just sort of bouncing back and forth, hit and running us. They're going to ensnare some of these, a statue, a tauren, and a grunt. So that's a pretty good catch for purple, and this is actually really smart of them to do. They're going to get a free tauren kill, though they do have to focus that tauren, and teal is just getting rocked here in the meantime. I'm trying to keep this tauren alive. Anti-magic shield, impale, cluster rockets, and of course the spirit link and the statues. Doing a pretty decent job there of that. So while purple was able to snipe off some rallied units fairly easily, teal just got obliterated. And again, that's sort of the problem with going for these like mass archer type strategies. It's a glass cannon, and if your ally or if you don't somehow have enough tanking units, you're going to be in pretty bad shape. Really good impale there. I think he's going to get a stomp off, maybe. Let's see, does he have enough mana? He's not quite there on the mana. Oh, he has to TP with 95 hit point, or mana. Man, I should have transferred the greater healing potion. We probably could have just won this game right here and now, but I didn't do it, so that was not great. I TP out with a lot of damaged fiends. I'm looking at Jake's army. Jake's army, I think, was in decent shape. I'm not actually entirely sure those 2 tauren were there, which would probably make a huge difference. It's okay that we TP'd out to heal, but we did have plenty of mana on the, we were about to have enough mana for another stomp. I had enough mana for a cluster rockets, and then I would be really close to another cluster rockets. Looks like I was close to enough mana for another impale. And again, I actually sort of got pretty lucky with the Pendant of Energy and the Mantle of Intelligence. Between those 2 items, that's going to be 195 extra mana on the Crypt Lord, which is almost 2 full impales. So that's really good news. And 3 intelligence is also going to increase my mana regeneration. So I go ahead and cast anti-magic shield on the Crypt Lord. I think he chain lightninged the Crypt Lord, if I'm not mistaken. So that was pretty good timing and very useful. It seems a little bit odd to say anti-magic shield will be big here, except a lot of purple's DPS actually is magic damage between chain lightning and all the spirit walkers. A lot of teal's damage is going to be magic between entangle and acid bomb. I think I'm almost positive acid bomb would count as magic damage, though, or spell damage, but I'm not 100% because it is like, I don't know if it's like the poison effects are sort of interesting, like with Shadow Strike with the Warden. If you Shadow Strike like a Spirit Walker, I think the initial hit, if you Shadow Strike an Ethereal Walker, that is, I think the initial hit actually counts as physical damage, and then the rest of it is poison damage. So I don't know if there's any of that weird interaction between acid bomb. Like, does the first hit count as physical damage and the rest count as magic / poison? I'm not 100% there, but my assumption is it's just magic damage. But again, I'm not 100% on that. But anyways, now I've got a bunch of tauren with 1 armor upgrade. We've got master level Spear Walkers. I've got adept level Banshees. I'm about to get master level. Though I don't really intend on possessing anything. I guess possessing a couple of these raiders would probably be very strong. I guess you. Yeah, I think you. I'm not 100% if you can actually possess Spirit Walkers. It would be nice, but again, they have spell resistance. So I don't know if that's like the mountain giants, where when they get spell resistance, you can't possess them. and they're going to catch another Rally Jack statue. So that's really, in terms of the Rally Jacking, they're doing a good job. I should have been a little bit more careful with that. But in the meantime, we got to do some damage to Teal, I think. So if you look at Teal's army, he's got 2 archers. They're really desperately trying to get up. Well, they got up an expansion, but they're desperately trying to get some kind of advantage in terms of economy going. The bad news for them is, well, 2 things. One is these corner expansions actually are not the ideal expansions in terms of long-term planning. The middle expansions all have 15,000 gold. So if everything else is more or less equal, you would prefer to have... Wow, that orc got out of there with like a bunch of nearly dead stuff. But I guess Jake's going to clean up some of that stuff, so that's good. I thought I missed out on most of that. I mean, I did, but Jake cleans it up. So, and he's got these Kodo beasts. He needs to kill that Kodo beast immediately. Surround it, Jake. Surround it. Or just kill it at least. Got a Tauren inside. So yeah, it's a 2v1, but again, the DPS, that he's trying to focus down that level 5 Tauren. That's not really going to work out. I guess he's trying to dodge the Archer and Raider attacks and Kodo attacks, leaving those in ethereal form. I guess that makes sense. He's got Spear Link anyway, so they're tanking. It's just they're not doing damage in ethereal form. So, what was I going to say? So yeah, they're trying to get an economic advantage. Teal's army, now he's got a bunch more archers he's rebuilt. He's got 3 Ancients of War in that expansion. But again, the middle expansions, if you can hold them, they are going to be better long term with 15,000 gold. That is an insane amount of gold. Whereas I think these only had 10,000. So 50% more total gold in the middle expansions. Plus they're a little bit, you can they're closer like to the spawn points. So it's hard to say which one is quote unquote easier to defend. These are more out of the way, maybe less likely to get scouted, though we did pretty much scout those immediately. I guess you're closer to the tavern with this one, which may or may not be preferable. But yeah, you really would like to have those middle expansions more preferable. Those are preferable. So if he gets 2 corner expansions up, the most gold he can ever get out of those is 20,000. Probably less than that because of upkeep or whatever, but ignoring upkeep for the moment. If he had just 1 middle expansion, he'd have, about 3/4 of the amount of gold that he would get from 2 corner expansions. Now, if he had 2 middle expansions, he would actually have, again, 50% more gold, 30,000 gold potentially. So it's a really big difference. When you're talking 5,000-10,000 gold difference. That was not really a great impale, but I did manage to kill one of those Spirit Walkers, and it ends up leveling me up to 5. So, and if we're not going to have a battle, if they're going to sort of run away for a bit and we're walking around, I'll just regenerate a lot of that mana, hopefully, from the statues. But yeah, we do need to, while it's not really the best to get these corner expansions, arguably, we do need to keep an eye on those and fight back. If we don't get an expansion in sort of to counter theirs or destroy them both, eventually they will possibly be able to sort of fight back. Now, they don't really, in terms of the units they're making, Teal's units now are just outclassed. Like, I don't care if he's got 3/3 archers with the full upgrades. They will be okay, but they're not really going to be good against Tauren. They're going to not really be good against Impale, Cluster Rockets, Stomp. I really wish Jake would have had some stasis traps in there also, but yeah, those abilities are going to be very, very powerful against archers. And positioning wise, if you're out of position with those archers, Tauren and Stomp and all that stuff is going to demolish them. And again, it's like they don't really counter anything. If we get destroyers or air, or if he went sort of physical form with his Spear Walkers, yeah, he would have some targets that'd be okay. But in terms of getting to them, it's going to be difficult. We don't really have any air. And he's just leaving them in ethereal form, so he does not have any good targets for his archers. While they're very cheap, piercing damage is not good in a base race situation. It's not good in terms of mobility positioning. So he'd probably be better off just with mass huntresses. Honestly, huntresses or dryads would actually be probably decent. Just being magic immune would be a really big deal. I passed. I'm gonna pass a greater heal potion, sort of super delayed to the Tauren, and I don't tell him about it, but he figures it out and he uses it. And in the meantime, I'm getting off some amazing impales. Sadly to say, I think you missed one of these, but that was a good cluster rockets. That was a decent impale, and you probably should have tried to get between all these archers. But purple is going to manage to devour a bunch of these Tauren. I don't remember if it was here where he got out with all the Tauren or if it was later. But at some point he gets away with like so many Tauren kills, or devoured Taurens. Let's see. Jake's level 6, so if they kill this Tauren, which had 73 mana, I wish he would have sort of kept him alive just a little longer to catch that last that last stomp, and then died. But you know, what are you gonna do? So he gets off another stomp, and it's like, what do they have left? Jake's at 46 food. I'm at 39. We mostly are still in good shape. Teal's at 33, and purple's at 50. So purple managed to get out of there with a lot, and a lot of Jake's food is actually tied up in these Kodos. 1, 2, 3, 4 Tauren that are about to, not all of them are about to die, but if we don't kill these Tauren, what did I say, 4? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4 Tauren devoured. That's a big deal. That's 20 food worth of Tauren in those Kodos. So if you look at Jake's food, what did I say, he was at 46? He's actually only at 26 food that he can really use. Let's see if this stomp, he is going to kill that Farseer. Really good move on Jake's part. And I end up really messing up here a little bit. Teal comes in and he managed to catch me with Entangle. My hero was low. I needed to heal up or micro better. Sadly, I was really close to 6. If I had level 6, that would have been a moment to save the hero with the ultimate. But again, those Taurens, 1, 2, 3 are left, and one of them died, and there's 3 left. Jake's sort of upset about that, but again, they're going in there to get those kills. I was really trying to do it a minute ago, but like I said, he got me with Entangle. My hero was low. I probably should have grabbed a Death Knight or something, maybe, or an Alchemist. An Alchemist probably would have been really solid with Heal Spray, because they can heal everything and get Acid Bomb later as well. So, but either way, yeah, the sort of the total healing with Spear Link and statues and Heal Spray would have been really good synergy. Now that I think about it, though, I wanted to get level 6, of course. On the Crypt Lord. So we have another engagement. He's going to try to get this Entangle. I throw Anti-Magic Shield on me. It's blocking all that damage, luckily, so that's good. Yeah, it's pretty much game. There's not really much they can mass that's really going to allow them to fight us just point blank. Like, the only thing would be like Magic Immune units and air units would maybe be okay, because I've got Fiends, but I've only got like 5 of them. Jake's army is not really geared to fight air. If they're webbed, I guess they could fight okay, but he doesn't actually have that many units, honestly, thanks to the Taurens being in there. But Kodo Beast, aside from devouring stuff, not amazing. Again, if we microed better, that just wouldn't have happened. Like, they caught, it was Jake's units that got devoured, so I don't really remember exactly how it happened, but again, we have so much stun, we should have just been able to stop that from happening, like, before they even devoured anything, for sure. So we're going to go ahead and get, one of these killed. Let's see, are there any Taurens left? One's nearly dead anyway, so, not really incentivized to go in there. So that was really unfortunate. Teal had, if I had to, like, say what exactly happened in this game, from their perspective, I think Teal really was, his unit choice was bad. He ends up now going for a Chimera, which he can only get a few pretty late. It's like, 1 or 2 Chimera against Destroyer and Fiends and stuff. No Taurens left on the map, so the only thing he's really going to be scary against is maybe my statues or buildings. But yeah, his decision just to keep massing archers in the face of all that AoE and stuff, probably bad. If he just goes Dryads, I think they would have been in good shape, because they get a slow effect. The range in DPS is not quite the same, but just being immune to all that stun would have been a huge difference. Like when we were hitting them with AoE, like every time we were hitting the elf, generally we were hitting something like 4+ units. So you multiply that damage and that stun effect by 4+ units. That's a really big deal. Just imagine if none of the elf units were vulnerable to stun. Maybe his heroes alone would be the only vulnerable stuff. Then maybe even fairy dragons. I wouldn't really recommend fairy dragons against fiends though, but again, maybe they. Yeah, I would go for dries, not fairy dragons. It's a little bit weird. It's got light armor fairy dragons, are bad against fiends. Unarmored dryads are sort of bad against fiends. Unarmored is slightly less bad though, so that's what I would go for. And the DPS and slow effect of dryads, plus being able to dispel. I don't know if you can dispel anti-magic shield or not. I could dispel Spirit Link, I guess. But anyways, yeah, just going dryads out would be sort of what I would have suggested to Teal. Mass Huntresses. I said he could have probably gone Mass Huntresses. That wouldn't really have been amazing either. It would have been a little bit more costly. They would have been faster, and they would have been better against fiends, better against heroes, better at a base race. So in those aspects, they would have been good. But again, they're very costly. They take more from fiends, and they are not magic immune either. So they will also be vulnerable to the stun. Their range is less. So in terms of the impale and stomp, they're going to be sort of having to go right into the sort of teeth of our army and catch those stuns. So I'm not sure that necessarily would have been much of a difference, honestly. I mean, they can run around and be more annoying. Probably early game, they probably would have been a little bit more dangerous, maybe. Though, like 6 archers is pretty good DPS. Teal's going to TP to his own main. I guess he suspected we were coming, which was actually true. Purple again is running around all these Kodos. There's not that, like I said, they've got an expansion, but it's like, what are they really going to mass? He's going to get some Chimera. It's like, I guess 3+ Chimera is somewhat dangerous. But anti-magic shield should be good against that. Fiends should be good against that. Ensnare. Jake is starting to add some headhunters here. It's a little bit better though because we can't actually stun the air units. So and actually messed up and the keeper wasn't in my control group. So that was actually very dangerous. If they would have caught that keeper Crip Lord, I did have a town portal. Though if they would have managed to kill it, that would have been a big drop. But again, we do have 2 middle expansions towered up, so they're more secure than their expansions. Jake's got a top right expansion towered, so our expansions are more secure. 2 of them are. We've got 3 expansions. 2 of them have way more gold than the other one. Actually, even Jake's expansion has more gold than the bottom left one. But yeah, overall we've just we'd have to make some seriously huge mistakes to mess this game up. The Kodo Beasts, the threat that they pose is not really like immediate. They can't like show up and, unlike the Chimera, they can't just show up somewhere and like do a ton of damage. Now if he manages to show up somewhere, devour a bunch of stuff in town portal, yeah, then he's gonna have sort of a big impact momentarily. But if we chase him down and kill those Kodos, it will only be a temporary sort of thing. So Jake's going to hit the bottom left expansion. He's level 7, so if his hero dies, it'll get revived. Reincarnation. I'm sort of... Where's my army at? I'm sitting in my expansion, and I'm just sort of roaming around the expansions, defending right now. Again, we much prefer to fight near towers if possible. I'm trying to pick up a town portal. I think I kept going to that merchant, and there actually was not a town portal available, so that's unfortunate. But they are going to kill this expansion, sadly. Didn't get there quite in time, but they're going to lose quite a bit to do so. Let's see if they town portal or when they town portal. Jake's had it here, so it's a 1 versus 2. I could probably fight this out and do okay. That was actually a very bad impale. Well, I only hit 1 hero, but But yeah, it was really weird. I wasn't exactly sure what all they had. Those Kodo beasts do actually pose a bit of a threat if they can get in there and devour all my fiends. That's like my anti-air. So if I don't have the fiends, I'm not in really good shape. I don't have an orb, unfortunately, which I probably should have got. Probably pick up a lich with an orb or orb on the Crip Lord or whatever. But anyways, that battle went down. I think they lost 1 or 2 Chimera. They took out our expansion. Probably went their way. But they traded an expansion to knock our expansion out. So, and we've got 2 other expansions. So, sort of big picture, it's not going to be enough. And now it's just a matter of time. Like, they're just, he should have uprooted a long time ago. I assume that his gold mine's been gone for quite a bit, honestly. So, should have uprooted this stuff and tried to do this before now. Before now, perhaps showing up at that top right expansion with all those ancients, maybe could have caught me alone, or like he's doing, go towards the center and control that expansion. But now it's too late, because now the timing is like, okay, we can even sort of concede this gold mine for a minute or so, and it's not really going to pay itself off before we just sort of counterattack with a massive food count advantage. Jake's at 46 food. I'm at 65 food, and they are at 38 and 34. So we already have a pretty big food count advantage. The hero levels, 5, 4, 1. So yeah, we've got a hero level advantage. I'm at 6, 4, or 5. Actually 6, 6 for me. So that's Mecha Tinker is pretty fun. But yeah, look at all this Impale now. Boom, any kind of ground army. They should not be getting any Devours off, and it looks like they're not. But yeah, even if they did Devour, it really wouldn't matter now. Our heroes are just too strong. There's no way they're knocking down really any of our heroes with the Locust Swarm, Reincarnation, and Mecha Tinker, or whatever the ultimate's called, Robo Tinker. There's no way they were going to knock those heroes down. Really big 2 strength heroes and an intelligence hero that actually, oddly enough, has a lot of hit points and armor, and then the ultimate is going to give him a bunch more strength as well. You see +9 strength there, so that's massive. Plus his movement speed benefited from endurance aura and the engineering ability that he's got. So that Tinker is going to be just zipping around like a some kind of mechanical Godzilla or something. But yeah, that was a pretty fun game. For sure, I was the DPS of our army, so it's makes sense that I had the most unit kills. Actually, Jake got the most hero kills though, which again, he had some moments where he was with Tauren and stomping and doing a little bit better on the hero focus. So that was good news. Level 8 on that Tauren is anything +5 on a Tauren and a Crip Lord is generally very strong. Same for the Tinker, sort of between 4 and 5 is sort of he's probably better than average, but there are ways to counter him. Same with the Crip Lord and the Tauren, honestly. But if it's a big ground battles, then that they're not really, and they don't have a bunch of magic units, which they didn't. Then you're in really good shape. The Tinker against a bunch of magic damage like Spearwalkers or Chimera, Pocket Factor is going to be very bad. But we didn't actually have Pocket Factor. We had Ion Cluster Rockets. So that is not really the counter. The counter would have been magic units or air units. But actually Cluster Rockets now hits air units as well. So that's... but Cluster Rockets is sort of... Honestly, it's sort of mediocre. Really, only in this type of strategy is it, honestly, sort of something to play with. And generally, Jake goes Tinker as well with this STUNLOCK strategy, or whoever's the Orc goes Tinker as well. So we can actually have 4 AoE stun abilities, and then also Stasis Trap in there for the 5th. Because AoE stun... assuming that most of their units are not air or not magic immune, which again is a pretty big assumption if you're playing against confident players that see you do this. That's probably the intuitive counter. the easiest counter way to do it is to go for those type of units, or to go for like hit and run stuff, or maybe just not let you creep up early. But anyways, yeah, having all that stun against a lot of the common metagame sort of armies, like big mass armies of hunts and fiends, or archers and fiends, or archers and grunts, raiders, spearwalkers, headhunters, all these types of armies, footmen, casters, riflemen, all these types of mass ground-based armies that, and heroes, again, heroes are ground-based, all of them, so, and they're not magic immune, so you're always generally at least going to be able to hit something, heroes, units, etc. So, if worst comes to worst, you might have to go into their main base against like a human or something and start impaling and stomping on their workers if you can. But anyway, they're generally going to be some targets with most of the metagame strategies. Now, smart players should sort of adapt to what you're doing. If they see you're going for these AoE stun heroes right from the beginning, then it should be pretty obvious what they need to do in the mid game and the late game to best try to fight against that. Or they just have to outplay you in the early game, so you don't get those like level 2 and 3 stun abilities. Because without them, then certain other heroes just dominate, like hero on hero, like a demon hunter and a blade master, or a farseer and a keeper in some instances. In smaller engagements and sort of more hit and run style engagements, it can be a little difficult to get off, say a good stomp, or a good impale, a good cluster rockets, or whatever. And if they can limit the impact of those spells, the stats really don't get really out of control for these heroes until you get to like level 4, 5, 6, 7. Their stats are, while they're good, they're not like heads up against like a blade master if you got no mana. Like a blade master, shadow hunter, demon hunter, keeper, or demon hunter, panda, or keeper, alchemist. They can, if you're not leveled sufficiently, and you don't have mana to sort of slow down some of their damage output, you can actually start getting in bad shape with your heroes. Now the good news is you got strength heroes, some of the 2 best strength heroes in the game. So they will be able to tank a lot of damage. If you actually get the spiked armor ability for the Crypt Lord, then that will help you tank more damage as well. The Tinker starts with a lot of base armor, and all 3 of these heroes actually got buffed in terms of the movement speed in one of the recent patches. Maybe not recent, but one of the last probably 5 patches one of the patches in the last year, I think. Buffed the Crypt Lord's movement speed, the Tauren's movement speed, and for some odd reason, the Tinker's. The Tinker, actually, between the Tinker and the Tauren Chieftain, the movement speed is only an issue at level 1 for those heroes, because once you get level 2 plus, you get Endurance Aura and the engineering ability for those heroes, and their movement speed is it becomes fine. They will scale up to move just as nearly as fast as like all the other heroes. But the Crypt Lord's movement speed, is good to get that buffed up, so I don't need Unholy Aura to get around. I'm not going to get punished as severely. Same with the Tinker and same with the Tauren Chieftain now. You don't get punished as severely in the early game just having these strong, slow heroes. They're not as slow as they were. So, if the agility heroes want to really punish you, like a Demon Hunter or a Demon Hunter, a Blade Master, or even like a Farseer and a Keeper, or the Grove or something like that, they're going to need, boots of speed, or they're going to need to use entangles and stuff, so to really punish you that way. So, that's fine. If they're using mana and entangles, that's fine. Level 1 entangles, that's super scary, actually. And the Keeper's DPS is sort of low to, balance that out. So, so yeah, it's really not really a huge problem if you're getting entangled early game like that, unless you're like, maybe 20% hit points or lower, even then it's still not as really scary as it was before. Obviously, with the slower movement speed, they didn't even need, they could just like hit and run, and chase you down with certain heroes, and that's sort of always been sort of annoying. I think that's what drove a lot of the metagame and like restricting it to certain heroes. Every single sort of main hero really for until these patches, and even probably after these patches, but definitely before, you saw really the same heroes over and over and over again. And every race basically started with a fast hero: Death Knight, Archmage, Blade Master, Demon Hunter. All of them, either agility or fast moving because they're like on a horse. The Archmage and the Death Knight or a horse or whatever. So, it makes sense that they move fast, of course. But in terms of balance, it was really annoying because if you picked a hero, say some of the other heroes, the Mountain King, the Naga Sea Witch, the Lich, the Dreadlord, coming out of the gate, they were suffering a movement speed sort of disadvantage, which in sort of on paper it seems like, oh well, that's just one trait. They have other traits to make up for it. Blah blah blah. But just as it turns out, movement speed is a really important trait, just like damage output, like attack speed and stuff like that, and armor. I think I heard Grubby say before that basically agility was seen as like the best hero skill, because if you had an agility hero, they get attack speed, they get armor, and and the agility heroes tend to be faster moving, like the Demon Hunter and the Blade Master. So they're quick, they do their damage fast, and they can still tank, because they have, the Demon Hunter and the Blade Master had reasonable amounts of hit points and really high armor values. So any hit points they got were sort of buffed up to be even more effective in conjunction with the high armor value that they started with. Whereas the strength heroes, they have more hit points, but their armor values aren't as high typically. So it's like, are they really better at tanking? Maybe not. Certain things, yes, like nuke spells, probably, because armor doesn't interact with nuke, spells. But but the other thing was hit point regeneration. Strength gives you faster hit point regeneration, so that's what it does. But like, sort of in practice though, most of the time you like to have that burst damage. You want high burst damage, and if a battle is short, and you can burst damage stuff down, you can go for their weakest targets. If they've got like say we have these heroes that are really hard to kill, they can just ignore all those hit points, and yeah, it serves a function that picking these heroes makes them ignore our heroes sometimes, which is not a negligible thing. If you can just say, hey, my hero's basically going to be invincible through these, not invincible, but my hero's basically going to be around throughout the whole battle, and if he's not, they're probably going to be losing the battle because they're focusing the tank. But in terms of impact, the DPS on that is sort of questionable. Like, how much DPS does that end up adding to your army? And it's hard to really say, because if they're not focusing you, and the battles are not really lasting longer than they were, then the only real benefit you have is maybe leveling up more and faster, because your heroes are always there, and maybe they're able to get in and get good stomps. So in that instance, maybe you add a little bit more damage because you get a little bit better, positioning for stomp, for impale. You maybe level up a little bit more. So, but right off the bat, that extra damage and stuff for like Blade Masters and Demon Hunters and stuff, it's it's right there. Whatever they're focusing, whether it's units, heroes, buildings, etc., it's there. Boom, they get it. The movement speed, chasing stuff down for free before. Now it's not quite as bad, at least for heroes. A lot of the units didn't really get movement speed changes, so something like an archer or a headhunter or footmen and stuff, they can still chase those down reasonably well. Grunts, etc., ghouls, but the heroes less so. In terms of balance, I think that's a good change. it opens it up to where you don't just start with such a big disadvantage with those other heroes as first or second heroes, because either being forced to buy boots of speed or just not being really able to run effectively from those other heroes is such a huge problem, in my opinion, in terms of picking those heroes. Did that mean no other heroes ever got picked first? Not necessarily. You saw a lot of, strategies involving a Mountain King first for human, but that was, and they sort of nerfed Stormbolt, so that's, you got sort of buffed in a bit in one way and nerfed a bit in the other way, and then they sort of buffed Thunderclap. They pulled it back a little. So the Mountain King is in sort of a gray area. He was always sort of pretty viable as a first hero. Is he more viable now than he was before? Maybe slightly, but yeah, other heroes like the Dreadlord. There's a lot of reasons why these heroes might not be viable, and they didn't really make sense with certain strategies versus certain races on certain maps. But I do think a big part of it was just how bad how bad you were off if you had one of these slower heroes and you come up against a demon hunter, and especially if they pick up a boots of speed or something like that, or get item sort of item stacked. Well, then it's like, okay, now the Blade Master is chasing you down, and he might be hitting you with an extra 12 damage just from his items. Factor in critical strikes, factor in Windwalk, and all of a sudden it's like you just can't run from it. Like, you either Town Portal, or you lose the hero, or you have to do some crazy blocking him with a unit micro tricks. It's not exactly super complicated to do that, but it's just a lot of effort. Whereas if you go for a Blade Master, what is the enemy doing? If you have 75 mana, the enemy can't block you. You can just run through units and heroes, with no problem. And if they're not blocking you, or even if they are trying to block you, but you're an agility hero versus a strength hero, well, who cares? You're just gonna outrun them. So, then you can go use your clarity potion or a healing salve or whatever, and then come back, and it's just really frustrating. Especially with the Blade Master. With the Demon Hunter, it's less so. They can't Windwalk out of surrounds. They don't have something like Windwalk to increase their movement speed temporarily, or even just a speed scroll to go really maximum for 50 gold. They can make their whole army chase you down. But anyway, the Demon Hunter, at least you can surround a Demon Hunter. At least you can path a Demon Hunter, and and whereas you cannot do that to a Blade Master. And the other thing is, heal salves are just so cost effective if used right, that it's, it probably is holding the balance of a bunch of matchups just on how strong healing salves are, honestly. But, and especially against certain races, it really is sort of a glaring weakness. And again, you will say, well, okay, it's just a strength of Orc. Okay, and it's a weakness of other races. Say Undead, that they don't have, the only early game healing that they arguably have is, depending on the unit choice, you can get cannibalized for ghouls. Well, there's that. And you can stand on Blight, you can stand, get Sacrificial Skulls, Unholy Aura, and then Death Coil. Or Vampiric Aura for melee stuff. Ghouls, skeletons, etc. But other than that, if you go Fiends, which is actually generally the core unit for Undead in most matchups, Vampiric Aura doesn't do anything for that. Cannibalize, it doesn't work there. Burrow is a tier 2 ability, so if you're going to count Burrow, that's not early game. And even with Cannibalize, you have to use it on corpses, you have to stay in there for a bit. They sort of buffed it a little bit, so that's good news. But again, it's a really sort of clunky ability. Thematically, it makes a lot of sense. The flavor, for Undead, like I said, thematically, it makes perfect sense. I just wish it wasn't a channeling thing. I wish, you just used it, and then maybe it's maybe it works like Healing Salve, where it's, you're, sort of digesting, and if you attack something, or if something attacks you, maybe it, it takes Cannibalize off or something. I don't know, that would almost sound like it'd be sort of diluting the variant or the difference. You know, it would look a little different, but it would basically work like heal salve. Would that be good or bad? I don't know. You know, would it break undead? I don't think so. I mean, ghouls are still relatively weak in my opinion. They'd be stronger, of course, you would think. But again, if you can cancel it, and if it's not in battle, you know, then it's about as strong as heal salve, I guess. I mean, I guess cost-wise, Cannibalize is a 50 gold ability, but it's also restricted to ghouls, which are, in my opinion, just a weak unit. Ghouls or abominations, which is tier 3, but so yeah, it's, you know, that's just sort of a little bit of a tangent there. But yeah, undead doesn't have that sort of, you know, good healing, and if they don't go Death Knight, well, not only do they lose out on that potential healing from Unholy Aura and Death Coil, in the move before they lost out on the movement speed as well. So they were suffering a movement speed disadvantage, and if they went like Crypt Lord or Lich or Dreadlord, especially Dreadlord without ghouls, they were losing out on the movement speed of their whole army from Unholy Aura, which is really bad, and then they're losing out on healing as well for the most part. So it's easier to catch units and damage them. It's easier to get good positioning against undead, and they don't have healing. That is, you know, seemingly such a massive disadvantage to overcome. Now, you know, you might just have to. I mean, it's not that you can't overcome a mobility, you know, disadvantage. If both armies are just sort of doing a standing fight, and there's not a lot of, you know, hit and run, or you've got them backed into a corner, or you've got them in a choke point, the mobility, you know, is going to, the impact of the mobility is going to be lessened. You know, if they're standing there taking damage and you can just shift targets to something else, yeah, you know, they're going to be maybe spreading the damage out, but you know, as long as you're doing damage to stuff, hopefully you're getting as many kills as them, with between either Nova or Carrion Swarm or Impale or Death Coil or whatever it is, Carrion Beetles, or whatever you've gone for, Sleep, you know, Surround or something, but or even a Tavern Hero. But yeah, in terms of like the attrition game, having speed and you know, really efficient healing, and arguably having like grunts against fiends, you know, in the case of undead, in some senses pretty close in terms of the balance. But if you just stand there and have a standing battle, grunts are generally in good shape. They don't cost lumber. They only require a barracks. They don't require like a barracks and a war mill, which again, I'm not saying that they need to require a war mill. I'm just like in terms of the cost. They are cheaper gold wise, they are cheaper lumber wise, and they are cheaper in terms of the prerequisites to build them. Now they are not ranged. They don't have the ability to counter air on their own, but fiends don't have that either until tier 2 and an upgrade. So, but anyway, that's sort of off on a, you know, a little bit of a different thing. Just in the early game, you know, it's in sort of, you know, it's pretty balanced, you know, fiends against grunts, honestly, even with the cost differences and everything else. It's, you know, they're reasonably balanced against each other. But if you have, you know, have a couple of engagements and they save grunts and you're not able to save fiends for whatever reason, you know, all of a sudden you're going to get overwhelmed. And I say they're reasonably balanced because if you play correctly, even without a Death Knight, you can keep your fiends in okay shape. You know, you can mitigate the lack of healing with summoned units, you know, beetles, skeletons, stuff like that, you know, so you can mitigate some of your damage taken, and with proper micro, you know, you can sort of just run from grunts if you need to. Now, without Unholy Aura, it's going to be a little annoying, but if the grunts aren't actually hitting you, their DPS is going to be limited to like a Blade Master, so, you know, you can generally be okay there. But the problem comes in tier 2 when they get like Raiders and Ensnare. They get Hex and Heal Wave. A little bit after that, it's like, what does undead get in tier 2. Typically they're going to be getting statues, and if they went Death Knight, they'll get probably a Lich second with either Frost Armor and or Nova and or Dark Ritual at level 2. So Dark Ritual can sort of deny them experience. It can help power your Novas or your Frost Armors or whatever, so you can cast more of them. Frost Armor against melee stuff is actually really effective, but you have to have it on the stuff they're attacking. So it's fairly mana. I don't know if I'll say really mana intensive. I think it's like 45 mana per casting, but they also can get disenchant. So, and a lot of times they will get Spear Walkers, and if they don't do any of that stuff and you get an engagement, well, typically what they can just do is focus whatever you don't cast Frost Armor on. So engagement starts, you maybe have already cast Frost Armor on something, your Death Knight perhaps, or something. They go for a Fiend. You cast it on a Fiend, they switch targets to another Fiend. Ensnare, Hex, whatever. You know, maybe they Hex your Death Knight and go straight for the Lich. Maybe they Hex the Lich and go straight for, you know, whatever. Death Knight, Fiend, Statue. You know, but they just try to go for what you're not casting Frost Armor on. And if you have Frost Armor as opposed to Nova, well, now you're limiting your DPS. So you're playing a more defensive, reactive type of game. And again, yeah, they're reacting to your Frost Armors, that's true. But in terms of getting kills, how are you securing kills? And then if they get a level 2 Shadow Hunter, boom, Heal Wave. Harder to get kills. You know, if you don't have Nova. If you're using Death Coil to heal stuff, it limits your DPS more. If you're using Death Coil offensively, it allows them to get, you know, secure their kills as well. And so now you're really looking at like micro and unit. Well, you're looking at like items, micro, macro, and positioning, and you know, maybe mobility. And the problem is Ensnare really shuts down mobility, gives them the mobility advantage. And then in terms of unit stats, grunts do get that bonus damage against fiends. So while it's balanced, when you can like move around and like try to avoid grunts and stuff, when they get Ensnare, it's a little bit less balanced. You know, it's a little bit more tilted towards the grunts' favor. Raiders are not really great in terms of DPS against units. What, you know, their big impact is just either base racing or locking down the mobility, which again is an amazing, is a really strong trait for something that's actually very cheap in terms of cost. You know, it's like web, except it can hit units and heroes too. It's like, you know, should fiends be able to cast web on ground units and heroes? That would probably be broken. That would be such a massive change. I have to assume it would just be broken because Ensnare is so strong. And you can build fiends from the beginning in the first production. Well, you have to get a crypt and a graveyard, but you can start building fiends right at the start. So you can't really, even though raiders are cheaper, you're not going to be able to get enough raiders to totally lock them down and also get Ensnare upgraded in any, you know, in early mid game. Whereas if you're undead and you could, in web was just like Ensnare, well, now you've already been building fiends all in the early game, so by the time you get web, you probably have fiends, you know, 4 or 5 fiends already. So that would just be just incredibly busted. I have to admit, you know, as nice as it sounds like, and as, you know, in some sense on paper, it sounds like they should be the same. The key difference is when you can build fiends. It's kind of like talking about bears and abominations, trying to compare them. It's like, well, okay, bears and abominations, their stats are relatively close. Oh, you can get cannibalized and disease cloud, la-di-da, you know, but, oh, you can get vampiric gore from undead, you know, sort of la-di-da, but with bears, you can start building the Druids of the Claw in tier 2. Now, you can't make them bears until you get the mastery level upgrade, tier 3, but by the time you get to tier 3, you might already have, you know, 4 or 5 Druids of the Claw. Now all you gotta do is get the upgrade, and boom, you got, you know, 4 or 5 bears. And not to mention that they also have a roar. By that point, they will have roar and rejuvenation, which is 2 incredibly powerful abilities available at the mid game. Their initiate level ability is basically like level 2.5. I don't even. It's like it gives you, you know, like 2.5 level true shot or a damage, except it's not limited to ranged units. Obviously, it costs mana and all that stuff, but and it doesn't affect magic immune stuff, sure. But other than that, though, you know, the damage output is pretty massive, and that's immediately available. I mean, it's 100 mana for sure, but yeah, it's immediately available as a spell. Then Rejuvenation is one of the best healing spells in the single target heal spells in the game, especially for units. Can cast it on any unit, cast it on magic units, heroes, air units, what have you. And then, like I said, you can get, you know, when you get tier 3, you can get bear form. Also, elf at tier 2 gets access to a staff of preservation. For 150 gold, they can get, you know, over and over and over again, save units and heroes. Now you can try to play against it with certain races. Undead actually does not have anything to stop staff of preservation. Like Orc at least has ensnare. If you're going to go totally try hard mode, you know, you can ensnare something and then they can't actually staff it out. So right, you know, when you're going to get that kill, you can actually stop them from staffing stuff. And then Hex also, if you Hex the hero that's got the staff, well, they can't use the staff when they're Hexed either. With Undead, they don't have Hex. They do have Sleep, I guess you could say, but nothing like Ensnare. Nothing like in the whole of the race. Like they don't have anything. Only thing they've got is Sleep or Impale, if you want to say that, for stun. And that's it. You know, that's it for the race. You know, nothing else is going to do anything to it as far as stopping staff, which is really, really annoying, honestly. So, you know, that's really in terms of, like, I always think about, I try to, you know, the game is relatively well balanced, all things considered, and they, you know, I think they've made pretty decent changes. I know a lot of people complained about the Keeper's buffs, which I think is legit. Also, they made some changes to the Mountain Giant, which sounded good on paper, but in practice, the conjunction of both of the buffs made them really, really, and also with the Keeper buff and the Alchemist buff, which is, you know, sort of, it's not an elf buff per se, but elf is the race that's really using the Alchemist the most, I think, right now. It's really, really annoying now to play against certain elf players, especially players that are, like, really decent with they're decent players and have really good micro, because what they did to Mountain Giants is they reduced the cost substantially. I think they dropped the cost by at least 40 gold, maybe 60 gold. I can't remember exactly how much they cost before in gold terms, but they're down to 360 gold cost. I don't know if they dropped the lumber cost, but they dropped the food count cost from 7 to 6. Now that does not sound like a lot, and the 7 to 6 part is sort of like, you know, that's one food. It's, in terms of percentage, it's, you know, it's like 15, I think 15%, which again sounds significant, but in practice, one food is, you know, you're probably not going to make a ton of Mountain Giants. So let's assume you make 4 Mountain Giants. Well, before it would have been 28 food. Now it's 24 food. So you can basically get like one more Dryad or something, which is, you know, in terms of avoiding upkeep or whatever, can be some. Obviously, if you avoid upkeep with that difference in food cost, that's a big deal. But other than, I mean, and that is a big deal for sure. But on paper, it doesn't sound like that much. And then the other thing they did though is that's a significant cost reduction. I think they probably should have stopped there, honestly, and seen how it went. But they, in addition to that, they gave them a double taunt. And what I mean by that is, before when you hit taunt, it just, you know, it cast taunt, and you know, everything that could really, within certain exceptions, everything that could focus a Tauren as in range of taunt would do so, and then they would have to, you know, if they wanted to change the targets, they could after that. But now you cast taunt, and you know, it casts taunt, and then 3 seconds later, without you doing anything, it casts taunt again automatically. So not only is it much more sort of disruptive, it's also much, I mean, it doesn't add any like required extra clicks or strategy or anything. I mean, you might say there's strategy involved, but it's not any extra clicks. You know, you click taunt once, and now it taunts, waits 3 seconds, taunts again. Which, and again, with 1 or 2 mountain giants, it's not really a big deal. But when you're dealing with like 3+ mountain giants, and they're huge, and they're going to be in the middle of the battle if they're a competent player. It's like, well, now all of a sudden the battle basically goes like this against an elf. You're like, okay, you're trying to get positioning, you're having engagement. There's a wall of mountain giants up there if the game's lasted long, and it's like, well, you don't want to focus those. They've got a bajillion hit points and probably a lot of armor and upgrades to make it they're take less damage or whatever. So you don't focus those, and they can staff them out. So by the time you're about to kill one, you're not really going to kill it because they're just going to staff it out. So it's like, okay, well, you don't want to focus those. If you want to focus the Alchemist, he's got a ton of hit points too, and he can heal himself, and they can staff him as well. Well, you probably don't really want to focus the Alchemist either. So you would probably want to focus the Keeper or whatever other units they happen to get. Whether those are archers, huntresses, dryads, bears, whatever it is they got, you would like to focus those. Assuming they have some. They probably will, for DPS purposes. Treants, I guess, but those are sort of throwaway summons. So if you don't have Dispel, it's not great to focus those either, generally. But, so yeah, you really want to go for the Keeper or the DPS units, like archers, hunts, dryads, etc. But the way the battle goes is, okay, you have the engagement, you try to get into position, boom, they're throwing a taunt at you. Okay, you click again, okay, 3 seconds later, that first taunt is going to go again. It's like, okay, you're just massing clicks, like on whatever you want your target to be, the Keeper. It's like, okay, well, what do? They have a potion of invulnerability. They probably use that. Okay, well, now you can't focus the Keeper. It probably dodges a bunch of damage. Boom, they cast another taunt from something else. Well, now your positioning is totally just jacked up, probably, from all the taunting and trying to run through their army and entangle and treants and, meanwhile, Acid Bomb, they probably hit you with Acid Bomb, so that's going on. You're taking a lot of damage from Acid Bomb. The Mountain Giants are just smacking you, If they got 4 Mountain Giants, well, here comes a whole bunch more taunts your way, for sure. So after the second taunt, 3 seconds later, there's another taunt. Okay, you just keep clicking, click, 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 and then it's a bunch of redundant clicks, but you're just trying to avoid taunt. I mean, they're not really redundant. They're trying to avoid the problem of taunt. And then, boom, they cast taunt again from the 3rd Mountain Giant. It's like, okay, I mean, this is a lot of units. Like, 3 Mountain Giants is 18 food. But anyway, okay, you click, click, click. You click a whole bunch more times to try to get the positioning fixed, to try, to micro units out of there, try to get some damage on what you're going for. But doubtless, you've thrown probably like 5 or 6 volleys at Mountain Giants that you didn't really want to target. That's basically throwaway damage that they've probably healed up from heal spray anyway. And you're never killing those Mountain Giants generally because, especially depending on your race, you probably don't have the right units to do it, especially for like undead. You probably got a lot of fiends. Ideally, you maybe want to get ghouls and abominations to try to throw in there, but ghouls are pretty bad against Acid Bomb. Aboms are pretty bad against Entangle. And again, they're tier 3. You can start making Mountain Giants at tier 2. So that's a difference in like timing. And yeah, with all the upgrades, it's still, the Mountain Giants are still fairly tanky, even against like ghouls and abominations. But anyways, so the battles are just really frustrating, and it's not fun. There are a lot of strategies that are not really fun to play against, in my opinion. These mass turtle tower strategies with certain races, like undead, are particularly vulnerable to dealing with that sort of stuff, mass expansions with these annoying towers in an evenly matched game, and stuff like that. But this is, while on paper it's like, okay, nobody was using Mountain Giants. We want to see some people using Mountain Giants. Okay, I get it. I can see the cost reduction, but the cost reduction plus the double taunt mechanic, I mean, it's really a nightmare for me so far to play against it. I haven't even played it against it. Like, I haven't grinded games in solo and seen it, just like, but I've played it a handful of times, and games where I feel like I'm doing everything right and I should have an advantage and I should likely win the game most of the time, I'm losing the game. You know, it's not even close either. It's like, you know, it's like, okay, I'm able to dish out enough damage to get this mountain giant down to like 5% hit points and kill it, and they just staff it away. And it's like, okay, well, I just, you know, all right, well, I'm going to focus something else. I'm going to go for the heroes. I mean, you know, these are different games, of course. You know, I always really try not to focus the mountain giants, but sometimes, you know, if they run their heroes away and there's just like 3 mountain giants, you know, you're focusing the mountain giants because their heroes aren't there, and you think their heroes aren't even with their army, and these are low DPS sort of units that weren't even really viable before. On paper, they seem like, yeah, if there's just 3 mountain giants, I should be fine just to crush these like with my army and heroes. But it's like, no, not really, because, I mean, it's, you know, obviously if they're alone, you know, you can focus them down, that's good news, but it's not even like a like game-losing mistake typically, because they can just run their hero and a staff, they can, you know, throw healing, not salves, but heal spray, rejuvenation, you know, if they get level 6 on the keeper, good luck, because they got, you know, an ultimate worth of healing. I forget what the maximum amount is. It's probably like 1600 or something crazy. Or wait, is it 800? I forget what the duration is. The healing rate is like 40 hit points a second now, which is insane. Let's see. But yeah, it's just really not fun, and again, I think it's too easy to use. Like, people will always, for balance comments, like complaints, always like, oh, just use it yourself. It's like, yeah, I mean, I do. I've used it before, and I've won games that, you know, I felt like I shouldn't have won. Like with this strategy, even I think even like Spirit Moon won one of the big tournaments with this new patch that came out, and he like specifically made a comment after winning it, like, thanks Blizzard for basically making it. I don't think he quite said broken, but he basically implied that Elf was like overpowered, honestly. And people laugh because it's like the whole pro community seems to agree with that. And again, I'm not saying you can't win with other races. I'm not saying like just get mountain giants and you're a click you win. You know, it's still you have to micro and everything. But it's just like sometimes when when it's just so, the impact is just so insane. Like, you know, you can have like 1 6 food unit or 2 extra 6 food units, and I mean they cost a lot of resources. I'm not gonna say that, but it's like it just doesn't make the game fun. You know, I'm all for giving mountain giants like a use. You know, maybe increase their DPS. You know, maybe decrease their cost all the way down to 5. Maybe, you know, make them like a really expensive Tauren with less DPS or something. You know, that's fine, but like the double taunt and the cost reduction is just, oh man, it's just a nightmare. It's just a nightmare playing against it. Like, okay, 30 seconds to 15 for Tranquility. So 40 hit points a second times 15 is going to be 600, right? Yeah, 600 hit points healed if you go the full 30 seconds. So, yeah, that's a lot of hit points healed, and the cooldown of Tranquility is actually really pretty short. I forget what the number is, but it's like it's one of the shorter cooldowns between like really good ultimates. Metamorphosis Avatar is longer, Starfall's longer, uh, Reincarnation's longer. Pretty sure the Death Knight's ultimate is longer, and it's garbage anyway. But the Death Knight's ultimate is longer. Pretty much everything except for maybe like the Robo Tinker, which is like no cooldown, I think, or like really tiny, like maybe a few seconds. Um, so yeah, and it's healing, so you're like, well, it's sort of passive. So, but it's not totally passive. Honestly, you can use it attacking, you can use it defending, whatever. So it's not only in the sense that it's healing is it sort of passive. But other than that, it's versatile. The impact is amazing. If you do it between battles where you get the full impact, like I said, 600 hit points healed. The mana cost is pretty low. The cooldown is low. It's just it's just really, and then heal spray is heal spray is very efficient also at healing stuff, and now it doesn't affect enemy units, which again I like to change, but you roll all that stuff together, and now all of a sudden they just have these giant mountains, these giants, pretty much sort of unintentional pun there. These giants that are just not gonna die. Their DPS being sort of mediocre is it's actually not too terrible against like fiends. I mean, it's still for their cost is really bad, but when you factor in the bonus against fiends and just the fact that they really are just never gonna die, it adds up over time. It's just like well, and then the damage reduction from taunt. Like I said, if you've got 3 or 4 of these things, you're for sure gonna get like 5 or 6 volleys of attacks going to them, if not more. It really depends on the scenario. Like if somebody's focus like wanes for a second or two, like well now they got you maybe did 2 or 3 volleys on one taunt, and it's just shifting and it really messes your positioning up too. I think it sort of makes sense that it does that because that's taunt. That's like the whole point. Is sort of you know pulling aggro and focus fire and everything to it. But it's like when you're trying to position your units and everything like that, and then it's like boom, there's a taunt, and boom, there's another taunt, and boom, there's another taunt, and boom, there's. It's just like, well, now I have to click like a bajillion times just to attack this thing that I'm trying to attack, and all this damage has been reduced. It's just like the battle has just become like really frustrating. Like I don't know, like it's just no other way to really say it for me. Like it's just like I understand how the mechanic works. I understand how you counter it. It's just to just to click right after they do it. Just make sure your units are focusing and moving where you want them to, and just redundant clicks is probably the way to do it. Just in case when they do, the clicks don't become redundant. It seems like that way, but they become useful clicks because they taunted. You need to keep doing it, but it just like the way the way it comes out in the gameplay mechanics, it's just like I don't maybe it's because I'm like a sort of mediocre APM player. I'm not like 200 APM pro level or semi pro level or whatever you want to say. I'm not like going super try hard mode all the time in the battles. So maybe it's impacting me more than some other people. I don't know. But even at the pro level, they're complaining about it. So that makes me think not really. Just I think they're maybe just it's just slightly. I don't know if the mechanic is sort of just busted that way, or the efficiency is just slightly out of whack, where maybe they increase the gold cost back up to like 380, or the food cost back up to 7, or make the duration between taunts not 3 seconds, maybe make it 5 seconds, or maybe make them actually maybe just reduce the taunt cooldown. So if they want to have a taunt right after that, it's going to be a little bit closer, but they actually have to click it. So the sort of micro requirements to actually get the full impact of it are harder. I don't know. Just sort of spitballing here. It's just, for me, honestly, I'm just like, honestly consider just like leaving games against elf players. Like, it's just that annoying. Like, I don't do it because it's just not in me just to like throw the game away just on the assumption that A, they're gonna get these keeper alchemist mountain giants. B, they're good enough players that I can't easily overcome it, and C, that the game will be less fun than it will be less enjoyable than just quitting. Because I'm just gonna get a free loss if I just leave, and I'm not gonna get any gameplay. And if I have to quit every single game against elf, and then if I catch random players and they get elf, am I gonna leave those games too? It's like, sounds really annoying, and it's sort of in a random matchmaking situation. That's I don't want to do that, but it is really that frustrating that I honestly thought about doing that. And again, if I get enough games in against this junk and enough players are doing it, and it's really just seems unwinnable for me, like I might end up doing that, like, honestly, which is ridiculous. Some of the games I played against like really good players that, it's not that they couldn't beat me without mountain giants, or that they maybe wouldn't have beat me before, but it's just that in a game where I've done everything seemingly well enough to where I should have a good shot at winning, in the game, it's not even that I'll lose the game, but it seems just like at the end of the game, it just seems like it's just totally lopsided. Like, I'm not killing anything, or I'm killing like one or two things, but losing everything. My heroes, like the attrition war, all this stuff is just, and then they like get like transmute, or they get like tranquility, or both, and I'm just like, well, yeah, what am I gonna do there? Depending on what hero I have. Oh, what did I get with the Death Knight as my ultimate? Oh, garbage. Great. So even if I get level 6 on the Death Knight, who cares? It's total garbage. My second hero, what's the Lich's ultimate? Death and Decay. Oh, well, what does that really add to a battle against an elf player with an Entangle already? Oh, nothing. Total garbage, on paper, it's like, oh man, that's potentially a ton of damage against big hit point buildings and mountain giants and stuff. But oh great, they have their metagame strategy just starts off with a crazy interrupt spell, Entangle. Oh, that's great. So yeah, and then the other heroes, it's like maybe those just aren't the right heroes. Maybe I need like not alchemist. Maybe I need a Dreadlord for sleep to interrupt heal spray, and or to interrupt tranquility when it happens. And maybe that's the case. An infernal is not garbage. So if I get level 6 on a Dreadlord, hopefully that will be much more effective. I guess sleep would potentially slow down their taunting as well. I don't know how it interacts with magic resistance. Probably sucks if they get the magic resistance skin, but at least that would cost them resources to do. That. So yeah, I don't know. I haven't really massed enough games to really say it's just generally almost it's not almost unwinnable, but against really good players, it seems it's almost to that point where it's like I don't find it fun. Like, it's not like, oh, it's really challenging, but maybe I can do it. It's like, it's really challenging, and then I'm gonna look totally like I just got stomped at the end of it, even though everything was going like really well, like things were breaking my way, and yet at the end of the game, it just looks stupid. Like, it's not fun to get there. Like, the battles aren't fun. It's just like I'm just frustration. And again, I'm somebody that's like APM is between like 100 and generally on the high end is maybe like 160. I'm not like 200 plus, and generally I'm more around like 120, somewhere around there, just in general. I don't spam and stuff, so that sort of goes to it. But but again, I'm not like these, you know, try hard, and I'm not really try harding generally in the games mostly anyway. Which you might say, well, you gotta just try harder. It's like, yeah, okay, you know, sure, maybe I'll do a little better that way, but it's just like, you know, when I play like one of my better games, and it just like is really frustrating, and it doesn't even look close at the end. Like it's not even really close. It's just like, well, you know what about if I don't play my best game, or if they catch a couple of lucky breaks, a Tomo experience, a couple of good items, something like that, you know? It's like, well, yeah, if I can't win my playing at my best or close to my best, and you know not getting unlucky, well, yeah, how am I gonna feel, you know, if I'm, you know, it doesn't go that way. It's just gonna feel really bad. It's gonna just be annoying. Like it's not gonna be fun. So it's not to say that I don't have fun in games that I lose. Obviously, you want to win, but like the actual battles themselves just are not fun. Like just like bashing my head against towers, you know, in those type of games, those hit and run, you know, cheesy, you know, oh, I messed up, I was out of position, and you snuck up a mass tower expansion, and it just so happens my race like is not very good at taking those out. Oh, great. Well, I should have scouted. Well, now the rest of the game, you're just gonna be doing this dumb junk, and if I fight you, you're only gonna choose to fight me in spots where you got the advantage, or you're just gonna avoid me and do these raider hit and runs, or you just let the expansion, you know, crank up a giant army, and meanwhile harassing with a level something Blade Master, and just you know, it's like, yeah, the gameplay at that point, you know, is not fun. I just, you know, it's just like I'm tempted once you get to that disadvantage. It's like I hate to just quit the game, especially if I feel like there's even a slight glimmer of hope. Like I'm a person that like in fours where if like 3 players leave, I will like even as sort of junk as the user interface is in that scenario, like it's you have to keep track of like 4 different resource counts, and you know, control groups with 4 different like armies and buildings and everything else is like with a mass control unit count of 12, it is really like your chance to even playing my best, my chance to win is probably, I don't even know if it's like 10% in those scenarios. Like, and I feel like I'm somebody that's actually like fairly knowledgeable at you know playing 4v4 random team and the game in general. So sort of above average in fours for sure. Uh, Both in micro, macro, and strategy, I would say just like for sure I'm better than like the average person. So, but anyways, I'm a person that will go, I will go hard. I will go try hard mode in that scenario, trying to actually. It's like a challenge. It's like, okay, can I macro and micro and do the right strategy and the right tactics and pull this off against 4 players? Even though it's like the chances of that are just like so low. Like even playing my best, it's like trying to juggle so much that, you know, even something as simple as getting the wrong like race combinations can make it just almost a nightmare to like control. But I will do that like almost every single time, just because it's like a challenge and it is fun. Like it's fun, you know, trying to do it. But like playing against all these mountain giants and like keeper and you know staff and you know heal spray and alchemist and all this stuff is just not really fun. Like it just isn't to me, and that's just me. So, but and again, not everybody's doing that strategy, but it's common enough where I'm just like, you know, hoping that they like will change something about it. They put some sort of like joke nerf to the keeper, like they nerfed treants a little bit, but after they buffed them, but it's like his ultimate's still crazy. Alchemist is still, I mean, you know, Alchemist is not elf, but Alchemist is still crazy. The Mountain Giant taunt thing it wasn't changed at all. It's still annoying. Um, and the Keeper treants are still good. Their mana cost went from 125 to 100, which I think is good, arguably. But they also buffed Entangle at level 2 and 3 against heroes, which they probably shouldn't have done. Like, all these buffs together, they probably shouldn't have done it, because it's just so much. Like, I mean, the ultimate buff alone is, like, insane. And if they were going to buff some other heroes, like the Death Knight, for example, if they're going to buff his ultimate somehow to make it actually worthwhile, worth anything, really, yeah, okay, it's cool. I'm not for, like, not ever changing things. But when you throw, like, this whole batch of ultimate or upgrades on a hero that's, arguably viable enough in certain contexts, it's like, without changing some of the other heroes, it's like, I mean, you could say, well, Dreadlord got a bunch of buffs. Okay, that's true. Dreadlord did get, a ton of buffs, so it's probably fair, but the undead units, not so much. The undead units, core units, mostly got nerfed. Disease Cloud got a buff. Cannibalize got a buff. Necromancer sort of got a subtle or slight buff, with Skeletal Mastery being rolled into, or Skeletal Longevity being rolled into Skeletal Mastery, and then being made available at Tier 2, the Skeletal Mastery. I think they should have just made Skeletal Mastery available at Tier 2 as a separate upgrade, and maybe reduce the cost on both. Because, I don't know, I guess it's not really a big deal. I mean, it's still, I don't know, it's not, the strategy I don't even think is still really all that great. They buffed Unholy Frenzy a bit. The hit point cost is like 3 hit points a second instead of 4, which, is 25% lower, so that's significant, but again, it still feels sort of wonky trying to use it. Fiends are still sort of, These are a sort of good core unit, but they get sort of slowly outclassed in the later stages. They nerfed Destroyers for some reason. There were, like, seemingly an issue in one matchup in solo, but they buffed the poop out of flying machines, and they buffed rifles. So it's like, did you need to buff the counters to Destroyers and then nerf Destroyers to fix that matchup? And I don't even think it was really too lopsided for the undead. Maybe at the highest levels, but not really. It's not like undead were always beating humans. I mean, maybe the style and everything was just sort of something they wanted to move away from, and that's fine, But nerfing one and buffing the other, I think that was overkill, for sure. I mean, the rifle upgrade I'm fine with. Even though I think some situations it makes it annoying, but it seems fine. The flying machine upgrades are sort of restricted to a few contexts where they really mean anything, but most of the time they're not really an issue. But that's fine, buff the flying machines. But if you buff the flying machines, don't nerf the Destroyers to fix that matchup where flying machines were the count, like, buffing them, not just a little, but buffing their hit points, and their damage output, and their Tier 3, making a Tier 3 upgrade a Tier 2. Flying Cannons, a Tier 2 upgrade, really, like, all those together for what, extra 10 gold per flying machine? And nerfing Destroyer hit points? Like, what? Why? Why would you do all that? Like, it's mind-boggling to me. Like, and all the other, or most of the other situations, Destroyers were sort of average in terms of efficiency. They cost 5 food, they cost a lot of resources, and a lot of things really counter them relatively easily. But anyways, I'm getting off on a whole bunch of tangents here, so I sort of cut this short here. But anyway, hopefully you enjoyed the content, the game, STUNLOCK, a strategy I am very fond of, and it seems, especially when they mass non-magic immune ground units into it, perfection. But anyway, this is going to be the end of this audio. ScryMind signing out.